Alright guys, this is going to be my attempt at doing these 13-inch bars on my Lowrider S. I've had my brake line extended already, as I covered in the previous video. So I am going to begin the process with attempting to put my extended clutch cable on. I'm going to go ahead and start by, get a shot of this, removing clutch case cover. First I'll drain the fluids out through the bolt underneath and then very gently try and remove this. I'm going to attempt to do it without removing the exhaust because that will be helpful. But this bolt here is going to be extraordinarily difficult because there is a super clearance issue there. It's very tight. So I'm going to see if I can go ahead and get that bolt there to loosen up, get all this loosened up and out of the way, and see what we can do here as far as getting access to that nut. Alright. Hey guys, so I went ahead and got to the drain plug here with a 5/8 socket and drained it into this gallon milk jug here, which was clean because initially I figured I had just had my 1,000-mile service like recently, so thought how bad could the lubrication be, right? And initially I thought I was going to be reusing this. As you can probably see, I don't know if you can, that looks horribly dark. And there was a lot of metal residue on the magnet here on the plug as well. So we are not going to be reusing that. We're going to go ahead and put a fresh quart of AMSOIL 20W50 in there, full synthetic. So that's off. I went ahead and loosened the fill plug as well to let gravity do its thing, help drain some more of that oil out of there. And now we're going to attempt to see if we can get the case off to the clutch cover here, and whether or not we have to remove the heat shielding, exhaust, or both. So that's where we're at now. Good news, guys. I was actually able to get the short end of my Allen wrench in between this bolt and get it loose enough to where I could get it finger tight. Pop that one mystery bolt out of there where I had the clearance issue and I wasn't sure if it was going to fit or not. So that is a very good thing. I might not have to take this exhaust manifold off or even touch it or mess with it at all in order to do this job. So that's a pretty good thing. So I'm very happy about that. So now I'm going to continue taking the rest of the bolts off here, and then we're going to go ahead and make sure we mark which bolts came out of what, and we're going to see if we can crack this baby open. Alright guys, I got the last bolt out and I'm popping the case off, and let's see what we got here. Gently just pull it back and out of the way, and that's all there is to it. The gasket looks to be pretty well intact, so I did get a brand new gasket just in case this one tore or there was an issue, but this one seems to be okay, and according to what I read online, 90% of the time they're okay, so we're going to roll with this. Okay guys, so what I've done next is I went ahead and undid the retention clip, moved the boot up, and took all the tension, the spring tension, off of the clutch cable here so I can pull it out like so. And I got lots of play in it here to work with, but I believe I have to take the actual lever off the bars in order to compress it enough to get the loop out of there. So that's going to be my next step. That's a little asterisk drive that I'm going to go ahead and use to remove that, loosen it up, get that off of there, and that'll be the next phase here. Okay guys, now that I've got the clutch lever mount released here, there's just this little pin here that you can see that goes in and out either way. I'm going to pop that out and that'll release the clutch cable. Alright, so I pulled the clutch cover off, and I pulled the clutch line through and have it all totally released. And now what we need to do is we need to release the clutch line from the inner housing. Now there's two ways to do this. If you have one of these little tools here, you can go ahead and release that C-clip, but then you're going to loosen those ball bearings that are in there, which is not a big deal. There's only 3 of them. They sit in wells, and you can do it that way. But since I've taken the total slack off the cable, all I'm going to do is basically pull the slack, pull it to the side, and pop it off. So now it's loose, and I can release this little piece that little drum sits in like so. So that'll come off. And now I can just undo this bolt, and then it's just a simple question of checking the O-ring, putting the O-ring on this clutch cable that sits in between here, and then screwing it onto the clutch case, and then reversing everything I just did. So that's it. Alright guys, so basically reverse order of everything I did. I routed the cable, put it back into there, and I just have a finger tight bolt just holding that on just for right now while I mess with the wires, see if I can pull some slack. I'm going to pry that rubber gasket out of there and see if I can pull the wire slack up to the plugs out of here without having to take the tank off and access it from underneath. Because if that has to happen, then the project is going to be just in a whole nother place. So we're going to attempt to do that and see if we can do these bars and internally wire them without disturbing any of that. I have rerouted the clutch cable in a different way than it originally was to see if I can get more length out of it. But I can always pop it out of here. This is real easy to pop it out of here and just reroute it again if I need to, so that's not a big deal. So that's where we're at. Alright guys, I undid the two Asterix drive or Torx drive, whatever you want to call them, to release the throttle grip here and this mechanism here, and allowed me freedom to unreroute the signal light, which is held on by a bolt under here, which also holds on the mirror that I undid and dropped that whole piece off there, as you can see, and allowed me to gently tug that wire free. I disconnected it right there from that plug there, routed it up through here, and gently pulled it through. So that's one less wire now I have to worry about, because I'm rerouting those with new clamps to the forks here. So that's not going to be something I'm going to have to worry about. What I now have to deal with is I need to isolate the control wires here, which I can see right here. I need to unplug those. I can see one of the plugs, but one of the others is still in there somewhere, so I need to see if I can get access to that, and then pull that through. And then the throttle by wire portion here, which is, I believe, a separate wire from that, but I'm going to figure that out here. And that's where I'm at. Okay, gang. Use tape to mark the wires, some wire zip ties on some of them that were a little short so I wouldn't lose them inside the frame here. Marked them with corresponding lettering and numbering to go with what came off. And bolted the new bars on. And it's looking pretty good. Looks like I picked a very good length for my brake line. I have a good amount of slack here and at the top as well. If I want to add those extra 2 inches to the risers, if I want to, I can, which is pretty cool. So I've got some options here. And that's where I'm at. I'm going to have to start figuring out these wires. Some of the wires for the larger plugs for the gauges that were way up underneath there got unplugged underneath there. So I might end up having to take the tank off after all, which I'm dreading. But I can't tell you what a rat's nest the wires were in there, and trying to wiggle my fingers in there from underneath trying to free this stuff up to pull it through. But it took me about an hour, but I think I got most of it freed up. So that's where I'm at now, and I'm going to continue forging forward.